Certain times in life separate before and after, and that seemingly ordinary afternoon was one of those turning points for me. Everything had been routine, with Torun going on another business trip. I was left alone at home. The sole benefit of his departure was the ability to make time for myself, which I had long neglected. The last 3 years of Torun's disinterest had brought me to the point where solitude felt like a luxury, and today was one of those rare treats. In my bedroom, surrounded by my favorite bedding, I set up my laptop and placed a few personal objects nearby. I used to appreciate moments like this a lot when Soren wasn't at home. However, now that he had returned from university, finding such possibilities was nearly impossible. Torun's son from his first marriage, Soren, had a presence that I found difficult to ignore. I still recall the first time we met. His tall stature, sharp features, and piercing eyes had made a lasting impression, but it was only a brief thought, or so I told myself. I knew Soren was out with his mates and wouldn't be back till the evening. Feeling secure, I retired to my room for some alone time. I believed I had closed the door, but I hadn't noticed it wasn't latching properly. As I started to relax, everything went out of control. Just as I was settling in, Soren entered. The brief seconds that our eyes met felt like an eternity. I attempted to conceal the goods in my hands, but it was too late. The sounds from my laptop reached his ears, and his eyes grew wider. My body froze. I couldn't move to protect myself, drown out the cacophony, or escape the terrible shame. My heart pounded so hard that it seemed like it would burst. Soren's expression was unforgettable, a combination of shock, curiosity, and something unspoken, maybe even desire. In that moment, the feelings flowing through me were not just shame. That glance forced me to confront the emptiness I had been holding. "I suppose I should have knocked," Soren mumbled, his voice wobbly but deep. He took a slow step back, his stare never leaving mine until the door snapped shut. I collapsed on the bed and buried my face in my hands. What just happened? I was 42 years old, and Torun's son, my stepson, had witnessed my vulnerability. My thoughts replayed the look in his eyes over and over, and each time, a weird warmth spread through me. However, I also felt an overwhelming sense of humiliation. That look, it wasn't just surprise. There was something more about it, something that appeared to comprehend and even want me. Didn't thinking about it seem wrong, even repulsive? But I was unable to stop. My heart raced, and the sensation that sprang within me was more than just embarrassment. I'd previously observed Soren's subtle attentiveness, the way his eyes lingered on me and the discreet ways he expressed interest, but I'd always disregarded it, pretended it didn't exist. Following this experience, everything felt different. Torun was gone for 3 more days, leaving only me and Soren in the house. I didn't know how I was going to face him. However, underlying my worry of what this could portend, there was an obvious exhilaration, something forbidden, harmful, and impossible to avoid. I assumed it would end here, that it would remain an accident, but I had no idea what awaited me the next day. To hear more confessions like this and support the station, subscribe and enable notifications. Trust me, this will be one of the most amazing stories you've ever heard. I didn't see Soren for the remainder of the day. That night, I fought to sleep. The following day passed mostly in silence. Soren remained in his room, and after swiftly cooking a dinner in the kitchen, I returned to the living area. We looked to be avoiding one another, but the tension between us lingered. We were both aware of it but decided to ignore it. By nightfall, I had decided to take a shower. As warm water cascaded over my skin, I attempted to block out the events of the previous day. However, Soren's astonished but ardent expression remained in my mind. I was deep in thought when the power went off unexpectedly. The water continued to flow, but the bathroom was now completely dark. For a brief while, terror set in. I switched off the water and wrapped myself in a bathrobe. Just as I was fastening the belt around my waist, I heard Soren's voice scream out from the corridor. "Lyric, are you all right?" he asked. "I am fine." I think the electricity is out, I responded, my voice wavering slightly. I tightened the robe belt and followed the sound of his voice. When I walked into the kitchen, I couldn't see him, but I heard his footsteps. We need to find a candle, he remarked with a tight tone. A tiny illumination from a street light outside lighted one area of the kitchen, while shadows obscured the rest. As we struggled around, I accidentally bumped into him, bringing my shoulder to his chest. Both of us froze and held our breath. His hands instantly grabbed my waist and steadied me, but that touch was more than just a reflex. Sorry, I didn't notice you, Soren remarked, his voice low, nearly whispering. Our eyes met, barely illuminated by the low light coming in from outside. In that second, the pull between us felt stronger than anything I'd ever felt. It's okay, I said quietly, my voice quivering despite my efforts to remain cool. My heart was thumping so fast that I was positive he could hear it. Soren's eyes shifted to my lips, his breath brushing against my face as the distance between us dwindled to nearly nothing. Lyric, he muttered quietly, his voice full of emotion. At that point, every barrier I had clung to appeared to disintegrate. The lights flashed back on, and we both moved away immediately, like two individuals caught in the act. Soren stepped toward the breaker box, appearing to study it, but the tension between us remained apparent and unresolved. When I returned to the living room, Soren followed, his gaze still fixed on me but now filled with resolve. He said, Lyric, we need to talk. His tone of voice indicated that this would not be an average talk. My heart raced again as I sat across from him in the living room, the air between us thick and nearly suffocating. We both knew this meeting had been long overdue, and nothing would be the same afterward. Soren spoke softly, lowering his gaze. Lyric, I'm sorry for yesterday. If I made you uncomfortable, that was not my aim. When I saw the door open, I should have looked away. His voice trailed off as he strained to find the appropriate words, but I couldn't stop myself. He confessed. Hearing this, my heart began to pound even faster, and warmth spread across my cheeks despite my efforts to conceal it. I nodded, trying to remain composed. Yesterday, I was so humiliated, I admitted, but I honestly don't blame you. It's lonely. Everything about this house seems abnormal nowadays. Soren raised his head, meeting my stare with unyielding intensity. Lyric, you are not what is unusual. It's unusual that Torin is not present, being so far from you. His comments hit me like a punch in the chest. I had tried so hard not to acknowledge Torin's absence, but hearing Soren speak it aloud set something off inside me. It doesn't matter, I said quietly, my voice revealing my lack of conviction. Soren inhaled deeply and leaned in. It matters. How can it not, Lyric? You feel lonely, and it's not your fault. Tears welled up in my eyes as his words tore down the walls I had created. Loneliness, I muttered. I thought I was used to it, but Soren's loving glance urged me to say more. However, there are times when it feels really overpowering. I'm not sure how to handle it. Soren leaned out and put his hand on mine. My breath caught at the weight of his touch. You shouldn't have to feel this way, Lyric, he replied, his voice firm and confident. Someone like you shouldn't be this alone. For a minute, I became engrossed in the sincerity of his words and the weight of his hand on mine. My gaze went to his face, and I realized how genuine he was. That's when I realized it wasn't a simple misunderstanding. Soren sincerely intended it. I attempted to steer the topic away from the tension. I want to talk about Vesper, I added, my voice more steady. I was concerned about you when you said you had split up, but why? Soren hesitated briefly before taking a big breath and returning my gaze. I haven't felt anything for her in a long time, he confessed. That relationship ended a while ago, but I couldn't bring myself to admit it. I examined his expression attentively. Why now? Why did you decide to end it now? Soren averted his attention for a moment before returning it to me. The intimacy between us was intense, and I could feel his breath. Because I like you, Lyric, he added softly but confidently. Vesper didn't matter anymore because you were the only one on my mind. It has been this way for a while. That is why I ended it. I opened my lips to respond but had no words. Soren softly placed his hands around my waist, bringing me closer. Our lips were just inches apart, and I understood it wasn't just a transient attraction. There was a line we were about to cross, one that we couldn't undo. When Soren's lips contacted mine, it was as if time had stopped. His warmth, assurance, and the magnetic pull between us engulfed me completely. My heart raced furiously, and my mind went blank. Nothing else existed save the present time with him. Eventually, the intensity overtook me, and I broke the kiss, pushing back slightly to regain my breath. Looking into his eyes, I said, I've been drawn to you for a long time, Soren. As the words left my mouth, I felt every barrier between us crumble utterly. For a minute, we were surrounded in stillness, a watershed moment in which we both considered how far we were willing to go. I locked eyes with him, took a big breath, and stood up. He appeared astonished, yet there was a hint of yearning in his expression. I can't take this loneliness anymore, I spoke firmly, my voice unflinching. I'd held myself back for so long that stopping now seemed futile. Soren placed a fierce and intriguing glance on me. I slowly unfastened the belt of my robe, allowing the fabric to drop off my shoulders and pool at my feet. Without reluctance, I approached the enormous couch in the main room. I dropped myself onto the plush cushions, lying with my body extended out. Soren did not hesitate. He removed his clothing one by one, carefully setting them aside. Every action seemed deliberate, as if he were battling the passage of time. His knee lay on the couch beside me, and his hands held the cushions on either side of my body to support him as he leaned in closer. I felt his breath brush across my skin, sending a surge of warmth through me like electricity. Our eyes locked, and his lips softly found mine. That kiss wasn't just an ordinary kiss, it was the release of every suppressed emotion, forbidden thought, and longing born of loneliness. Soren's hands traveled to my waist with a delicate yet forceful touch. My gaze fixed on Soren, and I felt something awaken inside me, something I thought I'd forgotten. The more Soren spoke, the more I was pulled to him. My body began to tremble, and I closed my eyes, making a loud sound. When I opened my eyes, I noticed Soren's strong shoulders and instantly placed my hands against his back. His face was red, and we were both gasping. I was completely immersed in that moment, and Soren appeared delighted and full of devotion. Just as my body trembled again, I pressed my claws into his back. He appeared to love it greatly, and he let go as well. A warm sensation went through me, filling me with an overwhelming sense of happiness. Every moment with Soren was fascinating and scary. Torun still had a few days before he returned, and Soren and I experienced intense moments that obliterated all boundaries. It felt so natural, so inevitable, that the wrongness of it all faded into the background. Soren's presence filled the void left by Torun's disinterest, making me feel alive again. When Torun returned, his apathy remained unchanged. The loneliness I felt during his absence, combined with the connection I had with Soren, emphasized the distance between us. Despite Torun's homecoming, Soren and I kept texting, even when he was home. Talking with Soren filled a vacuum that I could no longer ignore. One seemingly routine evening, Torun casually remarked that he had a work meeting and would not be home for the night. I couldn't help but smile as a sense of joy rushed through me. I picked up my phone and began typing a message to Soren. Torun is not home tonight. It's only us. I cannot wait to see you. My fingers paused over the submit button for a few seconds while my heart raced, but I finally hit it. Setting my phone down on the table, I let a faint smile spread across my face as I considered the evening ahead. What I didn't realize was that Soren was in the midst of a heated argument with his ex-girlfriend, Vesper. Her unrelenting focus on him had pushed him to his breaking point, and he decided it was time to stop it. Vesper's eyes were filled with resolve and hate as she interrupted him at every turn. Soren told Vesper, "That's enough," in a stern but weary tone. "Stay out of my life. I don't want it anymore." Soren's phone buzzed on the table, catching Vesper's attention. Her brows furrowed as she caught a glance of the screen, and the phony smile she was wearing faded. "I knew it," she hissed venomously. "I saw you both kissing." Soren lunged for his phone, but Vesper backed away, clutching it securely. "I will tell Torin everything," she spat, her voice full of hatred. "I have been keeping an eye on you both every day." Soren's heart plummeted as he realized things were getting out of control. Later that evening, Soren informed me of his conversation with Vesper. "I spoke with her yesterday," he began with a calm voice. "Nothing occurred. I simply told her to leave me alone. She'd been bugging me for a time, but it is now finished." His remarks provided some relief, but a nagging sensation of dread persisted within me. The next day, Torin's behavior changed unexpectedly. He became unusually attentive after breakfast. Normally aloof and chilly, he suddenly seemed to be everywhere I went, closely scrutinizing me at all times. "Are you fine, Lyric? Has there been anything going on lately?" Torin inquired, his gaze fixed on mine, a tinge of mistrust in his voice. His newfound focus lasted throughout the day, and with each passing hour, my terror grew. By the evening, I had had enough. I sent Soren a message. "Torin's acting seems weird. He seemed suspicious about something. I'm really scared." When I hit send, the doorbell rang. When Torin opened the door, Vesper's words boomed down the hall. My gaze shifted to the corridor, and I felt a shiver run down my spine as I spotted her. Vesper stood there, a mischievous smirk on her lips, her gaze shifting between me and Soren. Her gaze said everything. She knew, and she had clearly decided how to apply her expertise. Torin, still ignorant, inquired, "Vesper, what are you doing here?" His speech was confused, but Vesper's piercing gaze never left him, as if she had perfected this moment. Vesper greeted, "Lyric," with a mocking tone, her keen look penetrating me, leaving me breathless. She cast a fleeting glance at Soren before returning to me, her grin broadening. "Looks like we have a lot to talk about," she added smugly. Something inside of me crumbled in that instant. My mind was filled with crazy thoughts. What does she know? What will she say? Will she inform Torin? Is this the end of things? My hands trembled as I glanced at Soren, whose eyes reflected my anxiety. Vesper, with her placid yet wicked smile, was the most dangerous presence in the room, conveying a silent threat. And that's when I realized it was merely the